again for saying yes and for joining us. I am so excited for this conversation and feel honored to be connected to you from the moment that I was introduced and I discovered your music. I've just been fangirling, and I've never felt more connected to a piece of work and more seen. So let me just do a quick introduction and then we'll get into some things. Toni is a well-being leader and mental health advocate. She's educated with a degree in psychology. Her obsession with human behavior has led her to create a community where she inspires women to become more conscious about a culture, about their well-being in a culture that drowns women's entrepreneurship and empowerment with workaholism. One way she's doing that is through her amazing music, which allows you to affirm your life on the go. So again, Toni, we appreciate you. I thank you so much. Let's start with a quick icebreaker.
Yes.
If you had to summarize the dominant theme of your life into the title of an autobiography, what would you say that was?
Love, sex, and drugs. No. I'm just joking.
Okay.
I will probably have to say a title as my autobiography. I would just have to say love. That's the only word that comes up, the word love. Because when I look at everything that I've gone through in my life journey, love has been the strongest theme in every chapter.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And, there's so much that I can infer from that. So tell me about, how did you stumble into this work? Who taught you about this work, about personal development, self-care? And just tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, if I'm to be in full transparency, it was really growing up, watching and witnessing what I did not want to be like. So it pushed me to explore what else was out there, because I was like, this can't be how life is supposed to be, And so just growing up around the women in my community, the women in my family, and not to shame those women, but they taught me a lot about what I did not want to repeat. And so just being curious on other ways to woman led me to, things of like self-care and personal development. I've always had an insatiable curiosity of like, why are people the way they are, which led me to my education with getting a degree in psychology. But essentially, I didn't have anyone that particularly inspired me or mentored me into getting into this work and into this lifestyle. It was more so what I did not want to repeat in my own life that I saw so prevalent growing up and in my community.
Amazing. And my next question is actually kind of connected, because I feel like, you are, from what I can infer, you are an empath, right? So you're very observant, and which is why you thought to try to avoid the mistakes of some of the women that you were around. But I feel like oftentimes in the early phase of our lives, we kind of are just reactive to life, right? When was the moment where you realized, oh, I need to consciously create my life? I need to really pay attention to my thoughts and, try to design my life intentionally.
Ooh, the 2 points were definitely went after my 8-year marriage. That's the first point. I remember like having an epiphany of like, oh, yikes, I have to do something with my life. I spent almost 10 plus years trying to make a relationship work. But once I got to the point of like, oh, it takes 2 people to make this work, not just one person. And I was doing a lot to make it work on my end. And I was like, well, what if I did that for me? That was a baby thought. That was a real baby thought. That wasn't even fully developed. It didn't get fully developed to where I really started to, because when I left my marriage at that time, when I got a divorce, it was, I'm about to just go and see what else is here, because that wasn't it, you know? But then it was the next relationship that I had that really, really just took me there. It was like, oh, I have to really grab my life by the horns and figure this thing out, to be intentional about exactly what I want. And that is when I went back to school to get my degree in psychology. So my divorce led me into exploration and discovery. That relationship, the next real relationship was the one that catapulted me into being intentional about my life, which led me into getting my degree in psychology.
Okay. And on the topic of relationships, thank you so much for getting personal and for sharing that, by the way. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I know a big part of your message is on honoring the duality that exists between men and women, right? So how did you get to, what was your kind of journey of self-healing or taking accountability for your part in some of the relationship that got you to a point where you're like, I still honor men. I honor, rather than men bashing, rather than taking what some would call failed relationships as a inclination to make men the enemy, you got to a space where you're like, you know what? I love men. I love, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things that I've had in my past relationships was communication. And whether it was effective or not, I always ask questions. Like, I would ask stuff like, what's your experience like with me? Like, hurt my feelings. Let me know. Like, what is it? Like, what is it like to be loved by me? Like, I would ask questions like, to learn how this person is experiencing, not as my man, but as a person, what's the verdict? And by having those hard conversations to hear, because I feel like when you have this persona of what type of woman or ideal person you are in a relationship, and it could be completely opposite of how someone is experiencing you. And you never know sometimes if you don't ask, especially if the man or the counterpart doesn't feel like they have a voice. So you have to ask those hard questions. And so by getting those hard answers was just like, man, I have to take a look at this. If 2 or 3 people are saying that this is a thing with me. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's like 3 people can't be wrong. Even if I'm choosing the same guy and 3 different people, the reality is this is something that I need to look at. And it always came to a point where what they were saying was the issue, was not really the issue. It took me to take what they were saying and take a deeper dive into what they were saying and see what was going on within me. And it always ended up being something that was far-fetched from what they were saying on a surface level. How they interpreted it was their truth, but what was really going on was something that was deeper within me that I had to address. So essentially, for me to honor that balance and honor my responsibility and accountability of a relationship, succeeding, failing, or whatever, was actually being curious of how this person is experiencing you as a human being, not just as someone who loves you, someone who wants to be with you, someone who's, you know what I'm saying? It's like, this is a person too who has their whole set of life experiences within them, and you guys are trying to bring that together. That's going to be pretty complex, and it may not fit your fairy tale. You know what I'm saying? So that was an eye opener by asking the hard questions, having the hard conversations, which is not always easy for anyone. And I can attest, it hasn't gotten easier for me, because not everyone can feel like comfortable and safe in those type of conversations. So you always have to, take the temperature and see if you're in the right habitat to be that open and vulnerable, to have those conversations, and vice versa.
Yeah. What would you say is like the biggest, from what I'm understanding, hearing you say, I would say compassion, just to give you an example, like as you're going through this moment of self-reflecting and trying to, and you can ask everybody for their opinion, because there's some people that they're not mature enough. They're not, they don't care about you enough for their opinion of what version of you are they experiencing. You shouldn't internalize everyone's opinion, is what I'm saying. But if you're truly trying to see how maybe some of the trauma that you've experienced in the past, the ways that that has impacted you, where it's making you show up as not your best selves in your relationship, how, what is your one advice for how to take that information and translate it in a way that can empower you to now grow, you know?
Oh,
Mhm.
a professional thought partner, a therapist.
Okay.
Like I don't. It's interesting because as much as I've advocated for mental health, it took some really um, rock bottom moments for me to get a therapist because I know so much. I
Right.
practice so much.
Mhm.
And so for me, because I'm in my head a lot, not just with thoughts, but the way that I attain and process information, I need a thought partner to help ground me. And I was always self-educated in this journey going within. It wasn't until I got a therapist, like a one that, because I mean, it took a long time to shop for the right one. But once I got the therapist, I was like, oh, this is why they say get a therapist. This is what it is. Like the reasons why they said is nothing compared. The reasons why they say that people should get therapy is nothing compared to what you realize when you actually do it.
Right.
Because the way you have someone to hold professional space for you to unpack and then give you feedback and thought partnership in a way that it has no special agenda or to manipulate your think, you know what I'm saying? No one's trying to control you. They're really just trying to be an ally into you processing all the things that's going on in your life. So for me, it's the answer is just having someone to give you that therapeutic experience of processing your own thoughts and the information that you get from other people, because I have a tendency, where at least I've learned this tendency to internalize someone's experience of me into somehow my nervous system always comes up with, after all that's said and done, it's like, da 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 da, the answer is you're not enough. Da 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 da, the answer is you're not worthy. Like, no matter what the situation is, that's the story my nervous system has a tendency to paint over everything. So for me, having a therapist helps me ground in other truths, in more solid, practical truths than it being internalized as this old timeline of not being enough and not being worthy. A therapist, I encourage everyone who listens to this podcast to have a therapist, because it can be monumental in how you process what's going on inside you and processing how others are experiencing it.
Definitely. Wow. So profound. And you're absolutely right. Therapy can save people's lives. One thought about therapy is to think about it like dating, because some people, the first therapist they go to, they feel like it represents therapy in general. And I feel like you have to find someone who matches your thought process, your belief. I mean, they don't have to mirror you, but someone that you respect and that will
Yes,
give you objective, perspective.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
So now I want to get a little bit into the music. Well, not a little bit, a lot of it into the music. I read
Yes.
somewhere that you never imagined yourself doing music. Isn't it funny how some of the best things in our lives have nothing to do with our own efforts, or the way we stumble into, new paths had nothing to do with what we put on our vision board. How would you describe your journey into music and the role that music plays in our consciousness in general? Yeah.
Wow. I feel like it's a love story of how I journeyed into music because it just happened. It just happened. I remember the day that I got the download affirmation music, and something, the way that it felt, it was like, this is it. It was a feeling that I get when it's funny to say, but it's a feeling I get when I want something and it's already done. Like it's a it thing. It's like, oh, this is done. Like there's no possible world where I'm not going to do this. Like I remember growing up as a teenager, if I saw a certain outfit, I'm like, I don't know how I will get this outfit, but it's going to get done. I want it that much to where there is no other reality with me not getting this. And every time I had that thought, I always would get it. It will always get done. And so with affirmation music, once I got that download, I was like, oh, I'm doing this. This is dope. This is a great idea. My clients are going to love this. And I'm going to do it in such a cool way. I'm going to make sure the beats are going to be dope and things like that. So for me, it was like a love story. It was just like, oh, they just showed up and it was love at first sight. And then it gradually became a realization of, oh, I'm gonna do this for real. Like this is not just something for my clients, my coaching clients. This is something I actually want to do, that I love to do, I enjoy. If no one paid me, if no one would listen to it, if 5 people only listen to my music, it will be okay with me, because at that time, it was just about me exploring what this talent was, you know? So again, it was like love at first sight, but then spending more time with it was like, oh, I really love this. Like, I didn't know how much I love music until I started creating it, you know? And now I'm learning how to respect the actual creative process of, you know, perfecting it or mastering it, if you will, and how it plays on the consciousness. Oh my goodness, Naomi, it's fascinating. It's scientific, it's spiritual, it's metaphysical, it's mental, emotional, or how music influences the consciousness. There is a documentary on either Netflix or Hulu called Inner Outer World, and it basically unpacks, unfolds that the godly divine blueprint of our existence is sound. Like sound is deity in an audio form. Like everything has the blueprint, the thumbprint of sound. And so when it comes to our consciousness, sound has a medicinal impact on us because we're made up of vibration and frequencies. When there's an institute called the Heart Math Institute, and they have studies that proven that the heart has electromagnetic field that is like 10 to 20 times larger than the brain's electromagnetic field, you know? And it's just fascinating how our existence is interconnected through frequency, sound, and vibration. And so when you think about music, it's pretty much the DNA of, of existence, all physical existence and spiritual existence. So when you talk about music, you're talking about humanity, you're talking about life and existence. And as soon as you push play, no matter what the music is, it's going to make you feel something. You know what I'm saying? It's not just something you can bypass. You play a Beyonce, you know, empowerment song, you're gonna feel empowerment. You push play on Nuck If You Butt, you feeling hype, you and your ego, and you feel it, you know. You want to feel sexy, you put on the R&B song, it's gonna get that mood, that frequency up, you know. Mm-hmm. So when you push play on, you know, conscious music, healing music, affirming music, guess what's going to happen? It's going to literally shift your mood into a more healing, more mindful, more grounded, more tranquil state. So, I mean, I can go on and on in a rabbit hole about how music impacts and influences our consciousness, but it's literally like the water to our existence. It just describes the science and all the things to our existence. Music is everything. It's life.
Music is life. Exactly.
It is.
You know, and we take it for granted. It's okay, you know, if you're in a party mood or whatever, but we have to understand what we're really doing to our brain if we allow ourselves to be exposed to messages that are inconsistent to our goals, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I want to talk about, you know, I want to go chronologically on your bodies of work and to talk about the headspace that you were at. So I believe affirmations for the grown ass woman was first, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what headspace? So now you're like you strong headed. You're like, I want to do music. I know I'm gonna do it. I know I'm gonna do it not flyer than anybody, but I'm gonna do it as me, right? Which matters in some way. Um, what was that journey to finding a producer, deciding what song was gonna come first, or did you focus on one song first and built that out? Talk to me about that journey.
Well, affirmations for the grown ass woman. Um, it started with the concern of me burning myself out and trying to help other women who were burning themselves out that did not, and they were burning themselves out because they did not believe that they could integrate well-being into their everyday life. You know, they felt like they had to go on a sabbatical or, you know, meditate for an hour or become a vegan, like just all of these limiting beliefs to why they can't put themselves first. And so I'm like, God, what can I create to help these women like enroll into well-being and healing without that limiting belief or irrationale of like, if I put myself first, then all my life, my bag, my money, my business, my family's gonna fall apart. And that's where I got affirmation music. And then when I ended up going to California because I'm based in Detroit, Michigan. I ended up going to California for a month and wrote the album out there. I brought all my journals and writings and things and just wrote the album out there. And I knew I wanted to do 9 songs because I wanted these 9 songs to represent the 9 months it takes for a woman to, um, for a child to be groomed in the womb, for a human being to come into its full physical manifestation, it takes 9 months. And so I wanted these women to be able to have these 9 tracks to where when they push play, they can grow and mature the woman of their dreams. Like that was my intent, to where as soon as they push play, it's like, it's no going back. It's about growing. I have to grow from track 1 to track 9, and there you have affirmations for the grown ass woman. So it was all about growth. It was all about providing women that growth in a seamless way, as easy as pushing a button and pushing play.
Definitely. Thank you. Um, well, all of that comes through to anyone that listens to it. And then how much time passed before your next project?
Well, Affirmations for the Grown Ass Woman was launched in March 2019, Women's History Month. And then that following year was 2020 during the pandemic. And then I released Affirmations and Shield which was a small EP.
Okay.
When did I release that? I released that during Mental Health Awareness Month in May of 2020.
Okay.
And so then my next big project, full album, was released on World Mental Health Day of October 2020. And so I'll say about a year and some change, before I produced a full album again.
Gotcha. And I know that one of my favorites is Get Your Mind Right. Is that the one that you're talking about that came after?
No, Get Your Mind Right came after I City Mantras. So Get Your Mind Right was the 4th album, the mixtape that I launched on YouTube. You said you like that one, huh?
I love it. I love it. Like I literally have it on repeat. What is I don't like, that's why I wanted you to go through your headspace that you were at in each one, and then you can probably pick the song that started it all with each project. I don't want to ask you to pick your favorite one, but if you can pick one song that was the building block for example, the Get Your Mind Right mixtape.
Okay, Get Your Mind Right mixtape. I Headspace. It's so wild because these albums seem like they came out years ago, and it's just like they just came out this year. Get Your Mind Right mixtape was all about mental health, but mental health in, for the lack of better words, in a cool way, normalizing mental health. Like, listen, you got the power to get your mind right, so get it right. Let's go. Let's get into it. And then playing off the songs that were done by other artists like Erykah Badu, Future, you
Mhm.
know, Jill Scott, SZA. Like, it was just a fun way of like telling the audience, like, y'all get your mind right, push play. This is the mental health mixtape. This is going to inspire you to enroll into tending to your mind that much more, you know, but also inspiring your mood on a daily basis. So when you feel your wavelength is going off into a whole nother way, into a whole nother vibration that is not your favorite, push play. You know, that's what that was my mentality. That was my thought. That was my heart, was like, yo, if you push play on this album, you will not be able to escape being inspired, you know, your mood being inspired to be healthier, you know. And so, and then it was also a way for me to get personal with my own talent, get personal with the listeners. You know, I narrated on some of the tracks of that album to let them know who the woman is behind the music. So that's where my headspace was with that.
Okay. And now with your latest project, talk to me about that. The Free Me, it's a single and an album. Well, you're releasing a single first, but what is the album called? Talk to me about what headspace you're at now.
Yeah, so Free Me is a single of the album Me versus Every Me, Affirmations of Self-Love, which will be pre-released on 11/11 and fully released on 11/18. And so, oof, my headspace, I'm still in that same headspace. I'm courting myself daily, you know, where making sure all the versions of myself, the voices that are in my head and that are telling me to go here and there, just making sure we're all on the same page. And it may sound, you know, crazy to some, but I realize this whole experience is nutso. You know, the fact that we have to act what is defined as normal. And I say act, I emphasize act. We have to act as though everything is normal, is an insane reality, because we're all going through a complex existence, especially those of us who are awakening to how big of a deal we really are. And so, and the potential that we can fulfill in this lifetime. So for us, being normal is not even an option, you know? So with this album, it is the headspace, the heart space that I've been in and I'm still in, is making sure that all of me is on one accord with how I love myself, how I cope during challenging times, how I process information that's dished out by others, and how I just give myself a break from even putting things on my processor. Like, it's times where I just have to say, I'm just going to detach myself or not be attached to anything and just be. It's like, what is in my present moment that is going to bring me some stability, some calmness, some ease? You know, it's a constant courtship, if you will. That's literally the core of this album, to where I've worked from this place. I've created from that place, is from that, you know, courting myself constantly. And, you know, hopefully people are inspired to do the same.
What are some tools that serve as markers for you, right? So you can have these goals, but then there's the living of life that kind of gets you away from those things. I know that you have your Wife Your Life community. Do you still have that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, community is a huge part of maintaining, because you go back into the world and everything that's in the world is showing you no, you're crazy, or whatever you're choosing, the path that you're choosing on is not popular. So what are some other tools that you use for yourself or can suggest for other people that want to stay committed? We're consuming your music, we're part of your community. What else, or how important are those things?
I will say I definitely agree with you. Community is so important. But even within community, the reality is what plagues us as a human family is the human ego and the way it's been programmed to be self-driven, and so judgmental on everything, And so within community, there's still the pros and cons of it, right? So how do you deal with your flawed experience, but also the flawed experiences of others and how they deal with their own flaws? So you're always in this constant dance of navigating that, because no two people are perfect. No community is perfect. We're all trying to navigate this ego situation with being aware that we're spiritual beings. But so I definitely want to emphasize community is a practice. It is a tool that you can access to feel that sense of belonging, because that sense of belonging contributes heavily to your own sense of happiness and fulfillment as a human being. But I would definitely say having a daily ritual. I will say for me, my daily ritual, my ideal daily ritual is meditation. It is journaling. It is coloring sometimes. It's playing music. It's watching something funny first thing in the morning. But when I am not in the mood to do none of those things, one of the things that I always do every morning is ask myself, how do I feel? How do I want to feel today? How do I support myself to feel this way, no matter what happens? You know, Sometimes I ask myself, what is my self-care routine today? I don't want to do what I've always done this week. Like what I did last week and what I've done this past year or this past month has worked well. But today, I may resume that tomorrow, but today I need some spontaneity. I need something different. I need to be out of my mundane. I need to expose myself. You know what I'm saying? It's just giving myself space to be true to what I desire. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that is a cornerstone. It's being curious to what's true for how I want to take care of myself daily. I will also say nature is the plug, spending time in nature. In every interview, I'll probably always refer to science, because the research is just so fascinating and how abundant it is to show us how nature and the human body are so interconnected. It's like this collaboration for our own longevity and self-preservation. So I would definitely say spending time out in nature, going for walks, what is it called? Forest bathing, where you're just in a forest sitting, if you're not used to that, bring a friend, bring someone else, try something different. I will also say spontaneity and trying something new. There's nothing your brain is more terrified and excited about than doing something new. Like, especially if you do something new and you like it, but even if you don't like it, just to give your brain some new content, some new environment, new engagement, new ways of just opening your mind up is so important. I know for me, that is huge. Spontaneity and doing something new. And it is enjoyable to do it with someone as well. But I think we should all give ourselves that type of experience as we navigate the mundane. Like, do something new. Like, find a new hobby, try something you've never tried before, listen to some new music you've never listened to before. But these are just some of the things that I incorporate into my daily practice, a habit of being grounded and taking care of myself, feeling meaningful, feeling alive, if you will.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing. And just a quick comment about the whole doing something new thing, other than the fact that it's shaking up your mundane, like you mentioned, on this journey of self discovery, it's our responsibility to discover what makes us shine, what, lights a, light a fire in ourselves and our